Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and I have a very important episode for you. It is all about protecting yourself online, whether it be your personal data or just general privacy recommendations and security concerns. We answer those questions with lots of different apps and services that you can use to lock things up and make sure that you are protected online. We also share some news, including some cool features that Apple has for International Women's Day and Women's History Month, before we answer some questions that you have, and of course, share our app picks of the week. And I have a game. What? It's wild, and it's all coming up on iOS Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Wow, wow, wow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If it's your first time, then welcome for the first time. If it's not, then welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we cover all things iOS, watchOS, tvOS, HomePod OS. What have I missed? CarPlay, AirPods and
HomePods.
Wearable OS. It's all the OSs all the time here on iOS. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm Rosemary Orchard.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty great, Mikah. We've got a fun show lined up, so I think we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Yeah, I think for us especially, there is something fun about, both of us enjoy helping people figure out their technology. And over time, I don't know about you, but way back in the day, I can remember being the person who, when it came to privacy protection and data protection online, I was the person who said, well, I'm not doing anything illegal, so who cares who sees this, and this? And I had a conversation with a friend of the network, Georgia Dow, and she kind of explained because she's a very, staunch advocate for online privacy and data protection. And in talking with her about it, kind of had this epiphany, this realization about how, regardless of whether you are, you're able to say, well, I'm not doing anything bad. That's not the point. It is so important for you to not only protect your privacy online, but to see the value of the data that you put out into the world by browsing sites and things like that. So today's episode, we are covering some different ways to help you protect yourself online and to also protect your data online so that you don't go about kind of spreading that stuff around when you don't want to. And I'm sure, Rosemary, you've gotten plenty of questions about whether or not Instagram is listening via a microphone or Amazon knows that you is listening with the echoes to determine, what it needs to show you in ads, right? You've surely gotten that question before.
Yeah. And there was the friend at university who was, doing something on the internet and had just eaten a bowl of cereal or something, and it was advertising cereal to him, and he was like, oh my God, it's watching me do things. And I'm there going, no, you just eat cereal at the same time every day, and then you frequently go online and online shop for cereal after that. And so it's figured it out and is showing you adverts because of what you do, which I understand is a little bit creepy. On the other hand, there is sometimes an advantage to ads which are tailored to you. I have made a great effort to train Instagram. It thinks that I have a cat. Or multiple cats, I'm not sure, because I follow lots and lots of cat accounts. So I get loads of adverts with cute cats playing with toys or drinking in fancy fountains, sleeping on cuddly beds. And I love those ads. And I make a point of clicking on them and going through it just because I like fake training Facebook to think that I have a cat and that I want all things feline because, it's cute.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I just had this thought that, oh my goodness, there needs to be a show that is akin to a private detective sort of reality show. Maybe I shouldn't say this out loud because I need to just do it and I don't want anyone to steal it. But you are a private detective and you a private investigator rather, and somebody comes to you and they explain, I know that this site was listening to me, or I know that this thing was listening to me. And just like you explained, no, it's just that you eat cereal at every time every day, that you go buy more cereal at this time. Because I, on a number of occasions, have had to help my partner with that, where, he is convinced that the advertisers know that he's watching some show because then he'll get ads about it. And I'm like, yeah, but do you remember whenever you did the Google search to try to figure out what cast member that was? That's what it was that led to them advertising about this show to you, showing you different, merch that is related to the show. And that's come up a number of times. And it'd be really fun to kind of figure out the patterns that have led to that. Because I think that ultimately it's about easing anxiety. But at the same time, as you're easing anxiety about and kind of teaching folks about what's not happening, they quickly realize what is happening, which is that even though Instagram is not listening to you with the microphone, it and other sites are still following what you're doing, so much so that it makes you think that it's listening to you with the microphone. And that in and of itself is something that, is worth being concerned about. So today, we should definitely talk about some ways to help protect yourself online. And of course, this is not just for tracking protection. It's all sorts of types of ways to protect yourself online from bad actors, just as much as advertisers and data collectors and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, let's start with one that's relatively easy for people to do, which is using a VPN. And I would really recommend this whenever you're on sort of public Wi-Fi that's open to everybody. So Starbucks, your phone probably auto connects to the Wi-Fi there because it's free. And you don't actually know if that's definitely the Starbucks network. You don't actually know if maybe somebody's left a device on there that is just looking and seeing what addresses are being accessed and are they in HTTP instead of HTTPS. And therefore, can they figure out exactly what you're doing and find out your password and things like that? And so one of the things I recommend for this is Expressvpn. That's the one I use myself. And I don't just use it for this. I also use it because it does allow me to sneakily pretend that I'm in the US to get things on US Netflix from time to time. Because, that's handy at times. But it's great because it has a nice app, which has just got a big button, which is easy to click. And you can also set it up so that it should just automatically connect when you're on unknown networks. And I do have it set up to do that on my iPad. Of course, an alternative to this would just potentially be paying for a cellular device and a cellular connection and only ever using that, because theoretically you can trust your cellular provider. But I know that there's not exactly a huge amount of choice in some places on cellular providers. You might have a choice of 3 in the US, I think. You've not got many. Over here, we have loads. So the fact that they have a monopoly makes me feel that, it's probably not a bad idea to keep your traffic away from them as well.
Yes. And I want to go into some detail. Of course, ExpressVPN has been a sponsor on the network before, and that's an important thing to mention. However, I think the beautiful thing about just like the TWiT network in general is that we get lots of different sponsors who want to be on the network. And if they are not up to the desires and the level of sophistication that we want, if they don't pass the test, essentially, then they don't get to be a sponsor on the network. So it often ends up that the sponsors that we have on the network are products and services that many of us have used before they ever became a sponsor because they're just that great. And ExpressVPN is one example of this. The thing that you have to understand, and this is just a general tip, is that I'm just going to say it. In every case, I would highly warn against getting a VPN and using a VPN that is free. Because if you're using a free VPN, then you are more likely to feel like you are more protected than you would be not using a VPN, and that your browsing is more private than it would be if you're not using a VPN, and you may therefore go about with that in mind. And if the VPN is free, then the VPN has to be making money some way to keep the servers running, to keep all of that going. And in many cases, it is the way that they do that is by logging and selling your browsing information to these data brokerage firms, these sites that, or these services that collect your information and build a profile about you. So if you're going to use a free VPN, then you might as well not use a VPN. Is the simple fact. And Expressvpn, not only is it one that doesn't log your data and is, as I've said before, is so fast about, you turn it on and you're using it and you don't really realize a difference. But the most important thing for me is the trusted server technology. And there, you can go read about it on the website, but I think that what makes this cool is that it's not logging your information. Instead of using standard servers to do your browsing, they use a special kind of server that uses RAM, that uses a volatile form of memory. And so with that volatile form, it means that when the power is removed from that memory, then the data that's there is gone. So there's no logging when those are off. And on top of that, each and every server is constantly running the most recent version of the Expressvpn, server software, of the trusted server software and firmware. And on top of that, you can, any VPN can say that they've been audited and that, they hold up to this and this and that, but that is not enough. Security experts will tell you that is not enough of a reason to trust a VPN, because there are lots of things that go into auditing, and there are ways to keep things from an auditor. There are ways to work with an auditor, all that kind of stuff. And so, what's more important, or what can often be the informed way of making sure that something is not logging your data, is by the use of government seizures of the servers. And Expressvpn, it's been a while now, there was an article about it, but essentially some government wanted information from someone who was using Expressvpn's private browsing, and so they seized these servers. And there was nothing on them. They couldn't get anything because there was nothing there. So I know this probably feels a little bit like an advertisement for Expressvpn, but when we talk about VPNs, I think that people will go, oh, maybe it would be a good idea to get a VPN. And then they go find a VPN, but they get a free one, and it's collecting your data in different ways. And the whole point of having the VPN is to protect you. So that's something that I want to say. But for anyone out there, because this show, while we do have lots of nerds, there are also folks who are less nerdy. And so I think it's important to explain what a VPN is. And so first thing to understand is what VPN stands for. V, virtual, P, private, N, network. Virtual private network. And you can kind of think of it as a I don't like to say middleman, middle person between you and whatever sites you're trying to access. And what it does is kind of throw you in with a bunch of other people who are using the internet, so that your individual browsing information is not being logged. So you're typing away on your computer and you choose to go to a site. You've got ExpressVPN or some other VPN activated. Your information goes to the VPN, and then the VPN connects with that site, and then that site connects with the VPN, and then that information is given back to you. And so from the site side of things, it just sees the VPN as the thing that's accessing the site. And because you and many other people are using that VPN server, then it's not as if you are an individual person. So it just helps to protect you in between. And yeah, ExpressVPN has a great video on the site showing you how your data is protected with a virtual private network. So I hope that that gives you a little bit of an explanation of what a VPN is and what it does. At the base of it, just think of it as wearing a Where's Waldo disguise along with 100 other people, and then Google, who's looking down with its Sauron eye, only sees a bunch of Where's Waldos and does not see you individually as the individual person that you're wearing. So get your Where's Waldo to protect your privacy and browsing online. All right. Yes. How else can folks protect themselves?
Well, the next thing that I want to talk about is something we actually mentioned in the last episode, which is private browsing. And if you're in Safari, then you can tap on the tab icon in the top right, and then there's a private button. And private browsing does not mean that it's not going to be possible to figure out that this came from your device. Basically, what this means is it's using a new set of cookies and an empty cache and so on, so that when you access Facebook here and then you switch back to your regular browsing, Facebook is in the private browsing area, and it's kind of like a container. If you think of it as a box, and then your regular browsing is a much bigger box where everything's kind of linked together and it can all see each other and go, oh, hey, over there, I get some information. By using private browsing, you're essentially giving it a very small little area that you can use things in. But if you do everything in private browsing mode, then first of all, you're going to have a worse Safari experience, so I wouldn't recommend it because things like your search history won't be there and things like that. And also, you'll just frequently get logged out of things because it's not meant for permanent things. But it is great for I don't have the Facebook app installed. I usually use Firefox on my Mac, which puts it in a separate container so that Facebook is on its own in its own little world and it can't connect to anything else. But I do want to check it on my iPad, so I can go to facebook.com here. Or I can try to, and then theoretically I can log in and I can look at it. And then when I'm done, I can just close this tab in private browsing mode or incognito mode and go back to my regular browsing. And Facebook's cookies won't be there. And so it will be much more difficult for Facebook to track what I'm doing on the internet.
One of the things I like to do is actually double up. Expressvpn working as the way to protect my access kind of from ISPs spying on me or not spying on me, but ISPs looking at my browsing data and those sites. And then when you also use a private browser, then there's not the cookie logging that can happen locally that then even whenever you go to if you were just using regular browsing while also using VPN, then that cookie logging could make a connection there. So, it's almost good to, if you're going into that mode, to use both in many cases. And there are lots of different ways to enable incognito mode or private browsing in Safari, opening up new tabs with that feature enabled. And I like that browsers make it simple these days to set up that access. And there are a few that are essentially private browsing by default, including Firefox Focus, which is one example of that. And it basically, by default, you go in and you do a thing and it's doing it privately. But you also mentioned another one, which is DuckDuckGo, right?
Yeah. So DuckDuckGo is a browser which you can download and install on your iPad. And when you install it, you get a little screen like this. And then you can just go ahead with Let's Do It and set it as your default browser. Now, this is a new feature in iOS 14. Until, September, October last year, we couldn't natively change our default browsers. And when you click on this, it should take you to the settings for DuckDuckGo or Firefox Focus or whatever browser it is that you want to use. And then here you can set your default browser app. Now you need to go to the app settings in settings for whatever app it is you want to change to set it up. Once you've set something else as your default browser, you can look in the Safari settings and see what your default browser app is. But once you've done that, then you can go here and use this. And one of the reasons why I like using DuckDuckGo is because it's an amazingly cool name, because why wouldn't I want a DuckDuckGo or Goose? And secondly, it's not Google. Now, Google is great and powerful, and they have wonderful search features. I absolutely give them that. But at the same time, they are also a business who is, they're one of their major ways of making money is advertising and knowing exactly what it is you do on the internet. So the more you do with Google, the more they know about you. If you're using Gmail, Google search, and Chrome, then they pretty much have your entire internet life right there, and they know exactly what's going on with you, and they probably know more about you than you do. There have been cases where women have started seeing adverts for like folic acid and pregnancy supplements before they realized they were pregnant, because store loyalty cards picked up that they hadn't bought, menstrual supplies and stuff like that. That's creepy. And that's one of the reasons why I avoid using Google stuff, because I don't necessarily want everything to be tracking me. But I like this because it just, it switches everything over. I've got, I can set up my bookmarks and everything here as well. It's just a nice, simple browser. I've got light themes and dark themes and all of that stuff. And of course, I can choose from a variety of app icons. And, there's purple, and I love purple. It's one of my favorites. So that might be a reason why I like DuckDuckGo, possibly. But they do, focus on privacy. And they also have optional extra search parameters, which you can find out about. Where you can then default to, or you can actually say, hey, can you go and search Google for me? And then DuckDuckGo kind of works the same way Mikah was talking about with Expressvpn, in that it kind of sits in the middle protecting you, in that it will go and it will ask Google, but that request is coming from the DuckDuckGo servers, not from you, from your iPad or your iPhone or your Mac if you're doing it there. And therefore, Google's not going to know that it's you that's done that search for, amazing comic books featured in The Big Bang Theory or whatever it is. So, it's another way of protecting yourself. And of course, cool name. It's cute, right?
Right. Cool name. I do. I like DuckDuckGo as far as, the branding itself, but also what it stands for. I think that it's, a staunch advocate and kind of does a good job of explaining why this is a good thing to do. Let us move on to a different category. This is a category of apps and services that have been around for a long time, and then in recent years was added to iOS as a term called content blockers, and exist in different ways as browser extensions and things like that. I think one of the unique things that I want to touch on, though, is that in Safari, so this is on iOS, on macOS, on iPadOS, using a content blocker works a little bit differently from some of the ad blockers that are out there, because the sort of old school ad blockers. It kind of reminds me of how there's sort of old school versions of medicine and then new school versions of medicine. So antihistamines used to cross the blood-brain barrier, which would make you tired. And then they figured out a way to create antihistamines that didn't cross the blood-brain barrier so that you would not get drowsy. And the same thing works here. These are new school forms of content blocking, where the old ones would kind of, as the page was loading, it would just hide and not show. It would stop the parts of the page that had ads and things like that from showing as you were visiting the site. New forms of content blocking go as far as to keep those parts of the page from loading in the first place. And that's the more important thing. On one hand, it makes the page load a lot faster. And on the other hand, when your IP is not getting to ping those different places that are loading, then you are protecting yourself even more so. So new types of content blocking technology are much better from their counterparts of days past, where it was just about kind of hiding parts of the page that you didn't want to see. With those still loading, then the remote server could then log that information still, even if the things themselves were not loading on the page. So tell me about one of your favorite, and it turns out one of my favorite as well, content blockers on iOS.
Well, one of my favorites, Mikah, is actually OneBlocker. So OneBlocker, you can download it for free and use one set of rules for free. And there are multiple different sets of rules. So it can block ads. It can also block things like trackers. It can block those annoying cookie notices that says this website uses cookies. I know every website uses cookies. You can block things like social media widgets, like sign in with Facebook, because guess what? That's another way for Facebook and Google and Instagram and Twitter to track what you're doing on the internet. You can block comments because they frequently use social media to do these things, and that's how stuff gets tracked. There's also a feature for blocking adult sites if you're a parent and you need to protect your children, and things like that. Though, of course, depending on what you're doing, you might be better off blocking that at home on a router level with something like Eurosecure. But what I really like is they also have regional things. So, for example, when I was living in Austria, I had block German ads enabled and things like that. It will just block English ads by default. And then, of course, you have custom rules, which I love. So the way that you set this up, Mikah touched on it before, but if you go into Safari in the settings app, and then you scroll down under the general area, there's a section for content blockers. And then you can toggle these on. Now, don't be fooled. You can toggle on as many as you like here. If they're not toggled on in the OneBlocker app, then they won't actually be doing anything. But this means that then Safari processes rules. So if I were to go to a website such as macrumors.com, and I have to remember to spell this American without the extra U, then this has actually got rid of quite a few of the ads on the website, which is great. Now, I should add a little caveat here of I'm also running a network-wide ad blocker. So I have great ad blocking on my entire network already. But that's something that is not something that I would recommend for your average person to set up, because it involves monkeying around with your DNS and things like that. And if it goes wrong, then you can't find any page on the internet, because that's how it works. So I would recommend using something like OneBlocker, just because it works really, really well. And it's free to download and give it a try with just one of these. And you can, of course, download multiple content blockers. There is a school of thought that says, Ghostbuster style, don't cross the streams. Try not to do too many, because otherwise, if a page isn't loading, then you're going to run into difficulty trying to figure out where exactly the problem is. Why isn't this page loading? And you just have to turn off all the content blockers because you don't have time to fix that. So I would recommend just picking one, and one good one. But I found OneBlocker to be a great app for doing this.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about OneBlocker is the fact that it has so many different options for blocking different things. One thing that I ended up turning off was blocking comments, because it basically breaks Reddit. And so I didn't realize that that's what was doing it. I would go to Reddit and I was trying to see the answer to whatever post it was. And I very rarely go to Reddit, but it was enough to where I'm going, why is Reddit broken? And I was getting upset with Reddit because I thought what it was trying to do was force me into the app, because if I did open it in the app, then I could see the responses. And then I had the realization, oh, it's OneBlocker. So OneBlocker was doing its job as I asked it to, but it was in such a way that it was not what I needed. I just wanted to mention, so OneBlocker is available for free, but you can get the premium version that lets you turn on everything for $1.99 a month or $4.99 a year. Those prices do change. And so you might see, because I saw about 6 different monthly and yearly options, and so I think that the developer has changed those over time. So your mileage may vary on the price, but what I notice about it is that OneBlocker does a good job of making the yearly cost pretty close to what the monthly cost is, so it's worth just paying for a year of it. And then they also added a lifetime option, so that if you are, a person who doesn't want to do the subscription, you can just do it one time. But I wanted to mention one. Again, in most cases, I'm not a person to say get something that doesn't cost you anything, because, again, you want to know kind of, okay, but what is the person doing to be able to make money off of this? But there is an app. It's called Hush Nag Blocker, and it is available for free in the App Store. And it's open source, so you can see all of the code, and you can choose to support the app and the developer who made it. But it is a free and easy to use content blocker that blocks a lot of the different stuff that is in the app or in browsing. But in particular, I found it to be very good at blocking those cookie notices. Sometimes those still slip by with different blockers, but Hush has done a good job of getting rid of those. So if you're looking for a free one, and you want one that you can trust it's not doing anything nefarious, Hush Nag Blocker is a good choice for you. So it's available in the App Store. It's available. It's part of the new. If you've got a Mac and you've installed Big Sur, it uses the new Safari extensions system, and so it's really great. You should totally check that one out. But yeah, One Blocker is my ride or die. I've had One Blocker for so long, and it's fantastic. Yeah. Let's see. Up next, some ways to protect your sites and accounts online. Up first, a password manager. Everybody needs a password manager. That's my song about password managers. So tell me, Rosemary Orchard, what is your password manager of choice?
Well, my password manager of choice is right here. It's 1Password. And I would not necessarily say, you have to use 1Password. You have to use LastPass or something like that. No. You need to use a password manager that works for you. And 1Password is the password manager that works for me. So there's a whole bunch of features that you get when you use a password manager. For starters, they don't just store passwords. They can also store things like secure notes, like I've got some tax information and an emergency kit in here. I have identities, which are things that I can then use for autofill on the web, and so on. I have email accounts, including, POP and IMAP information, so that I can always set up that email account correctly. And I can also see things like vulnerability alert, reused password. Now, that is not because this is actually a reused password. That's because I have two separate logins to get to this email, and they both use the same password on completely different websites. So I've got it here in the email account, and it's also here under logins. But what I really, really love about a good password manager is it will have something like this, which is compromised websites. And compromised websites will tell you, hey, this website at some point or another has been hacked. Therefore, you need to change your password. Now, AgileBits actually put their own forum in here, and I don't remember why. I think it was to just encourage everybody to upgrade their passwords because they realized a lot of people were using very insecure passwords. But what I really like is you can also do things like save Wi-Fi routers in here. And so if I go to my grandmother's Wi-Fi network, she's actually got a new one now, so I need to update this. When you tap on a password, of course, you can copy it or show it. But there's also a bonus option, which is really helpful when sharing things with guests, which is show large type, which basically just fills up your screen. And it does this. And that is great. This one, this password manager, 1Password, and I believe LastPass as well, both support two-factor authentication as well. And two-factor authentication is basically a code that is generated automatically based on time. Now, a lot of people will say you should not put your two-factor authentication in your password manager. And to an extent, I agree, you shouldn't. But at the same time, you're going to have to be pretty smart to get into my 1Password account, because I've got a physical key, which I use, which is a USB device that plugs in. So that's going to take a lot of getting around to get into there. So I do put my two-factor in here. And that means that if I go to a website that requires this, so for example, if I go to mail.google.com and I go to log in, using one of my accounts, because I'm using G Suite in this particular instance. I'm paying for it, so I hope I am not the product, though it's Google, so we can't be sure. There we go. Now I can just select an account to log in, and see right here at the top, there's a notification. One-time password copied to the clipboard. And that is something which you don't get from every password manager, and you certainly do not get from Keychain. And basically what this means is it'll do it again on the next page because Google split up the login. So I need to fill in the password here as well. And you can see it's using my Touch ID. If I've got an iPad with Face ID, which I do, it would use that as well. Now it's copied that to the clipboard again. And then on the next page, I will say, try another way, Google. I don't want to use my test Android to log in. Paste that code, and I'm in. That's it. I'm in my email. Now, this just makes it a little easier for me to log into things like my email and stuff like that on my phone, because it has all of that information right there at my fingertips. And more importantly, if something goes wrong somewhere, so for example, a website's breached and there's a massive data dump of passwords, then 1Password goes out, it pulls that data in, and it compares it locally and goes, yeah, you've got a problem here. You need to fix that. And I really love that they can do that.
So I've used 1Password for years. Of course, we briefly mentioned LastPass. LastPass has been a sponsor on the network before. And in fact, just this past year was a studio sponsor. And so we were brought to you by LastPass. And so huge props to LastPass for kind of especially being there for us during the pandemic. But 1Password has been my place for my passwords for a bajillion years at this point, and I've gotten family members into 1Password and use it for them. And yeah, I'm with you. Of course, they say to do two-factor authentication codes from a different thing, but ultimately, it's handy to have them right in the same spot, and especially with the integrations that exist, where on iOS you can easily, after you automatically fill in your username and password, it copies that code to your clipboard, and you can paste all of that stuff like you've just shown is so handy, and really kind of takes that to the next level. Now, we talk about that as a way to, whatever password manager you choose to use, what's important is using a password manager so that you're not using the same password across different sites. But I think that some people sometimes don't quite know why we say that. And and I think that this is the most important thing, is that you have to think about all of the sites that you go to. And if you're using the same password on all of those sites, then think about the least, sophisticated site that you've used that password on. So maybe it's a local garden shop, and you have, typed in your email, and you've typed in your password, which is kittycatlover11, and kittycatlover11 ends up getting, or that site rather gets hacked, and it turns out that the account system that they used wasn't storing the passwords in a secure way, and so suddenly some bad actor out there has your username and they have your password, kittycatlover11. Now your most secure site, say your bank account or your Gmail, if that's what email account you use, is just as vulnerable because you used the same password on the weakest site that you used on those more secure ones. And when a bad actor gets access to your email, that's when things get bad, because many sites out there use your email as a way to let you reset your password. So suddenly, not only does the person have the keys to your bank account and the key to your email, but they've got the key to almost every site that you visit online. And so that is why the password on that unsophisticated site should be not just slightly different. So instead of kittycatlover11, it's kittycatlover15. It needs to be incredibly different, so that way, if that site is ever hacked and that data is collected, that they can't just take that data and try it as your main one, or make little adjustments and try it as your main one and get into that and get the keys to the kingdom. That is why we suggest using a password manager, so that none of your passwords are the same. And even if I go into the compromised sites page on 1Password or somewhere else, it's not going to be of huge concern for me, because I know And my password there is not the same as it is elsewhere. And I want to give another example, which was a series of spam emails I got a while back they said my name and they said, we know your password is, and then it was some random password. And if you don't send us, 7 Bitcoin, then we're going to release, I can't remember what it was, webcam video of you as you visited porn sites or something like that, something ridiculous. And when you think about that, the chances that someone is using the same password across different sites and has at some point in their life visited a porn site and has done so on a computer with a webcam, like those are not super, super, super low chances. And so it's kind of a smart technique to try to excite fear in someone and get them to do the thing that you want them to do. And so with that, I think that's why it's so important, because I was able to look at that and go, that I don't use that password anywhere else. So nice try, you turkey. And I'd gotten several different emails of it as well. And so that's why it's so incredibly important. So if anyone is saying, hey, look, you just need to use a password manager, and they stop there, that whole explanation is why they're suggesting that you use a password manager. And feel free to ask us questions. Whenever we have a feedback segment, and if you've got questions about using a password manager, or you've struggled to get one set up or anything like that, let us know, and we would be happy to answer your questions.
Yes.
I wanted to mention before there's a great feature, Rosemary, that you're going to mention. But before we get there, I wanted to mention a site that anyone can use. And this site is called Have I Been Pwned? Pwned is it's an online gamer term, and I'm probably upsetting someone who was using Pwned before it ever became part of online gaming. But regardless, it's an online term that is the same as like being owned, but Pwned is just kind of next level. The point is, have I been exposed in some way? Have I been harmed in some way is kind of what the question is asking. So have I been pwned? It's have I been, as you would expect it to be spelled. And then pwned is PWNED.com. Have I been pwned.com. Lets you go and you go to the site and you just type in your email address, and Have I Been Pwned looks through a bunch of different databases and a bunch of different information and lets you know if your email has ever been kind of shared or exposed through some different site. So I will type in my email, the one that I've had the longest, and immediately it says, oh no, you have been pwned. And then it says, what are the different ways that you have been pwned? Well, 500 Pics, which is a photo website. In mid-2018, the online photography community suffered a data breach. 15 million unique email addresses alongside names, usernames, genders, dates of birth, and passwords, but not just straight up passwords. Adobe, Bitcoin Security Forum Gmail dump. So I don't know anything about Bitcoin, but it says, and this is what's important, in September 2014, a large dump of nearly 5 million usernames and passwords was posted to a Russian Bitcoin forum. Whilst commonly reported as 5 million Gmail passwords, the dump also contained 123,000 addresses for some sort of Russian Bitcoin forum. Whilst the origin of the breach remains unclear, the breached credentials were confirmed by multiple sources as correct, albeit a number of years old. So essentially, they don't know where the original breach happened, if it was, a breach of some photo saving site like Flickr or something like that. But regardless, my email was included in this Bitcoin security dump. Bitly, the URL shortening service, Canva, which is an app for graphic design stuff, Chegg, which was a textbook rental service. So all the way back to college, I have a breach. Several different unverified things where, again, kind of like that Russian one is they don't know the source. Discus, Dropbox, Last.fm, Mashable, Patreon, Roll20, Ticketfly, Tumblr, and Zynga. Wow, remember Zynga, creator of Words with Friends? All of those places, because of that, my email and potentially passwords, phone numbers, usernames have been exposed. And so what I can do with that is make sure that on those sites with those accounts, I go in and make adjustments to those things. So that is a great way for you to be aware of where your email and thereby your passwords and addresses and things like that may have been breached. HaveIBeenPwned.com. Now, Rosemary, you were going to talk about a new feature or newer feature that's come to iOS and iPadOS, macOS, etc., that can also help keep you protected and private online.
Yeah. So for anybody going, oh my God, password managers, this seems really complicated, I would recommend A, it's not that complicated. And B, you've probably seen a little button pop up in a lot of places recently called Sign In with Apple. And you've probably been wondering a little bit, what this is and how it works. But essentially, the way that it works is it uses your iCloud account to sign in to somewhere. Now, at the start of the show, we did say, if you're signing in with Facebook or Twitter or Google, then that means Facebook, Twitter, Google, whoever you're signing in with can track you everywhere. However, Apple very explicitly go out of their way to not track you because they kind of don't really care about your data because you're spending enough money on the device itself. And so what happens, and I'm going to use iCloud.com as an example here of a website that you can sign into using your Apple ID. It pops up with this and it just goes, hey, straight away, would you like to sign in with this? Because Apple knows, obviously, I have an iCloud account. I'm on an iPad and I can just use that. But for a lot of websites where you don't yet have an account, or for every website where you don't yet have an account, you can hide your email address. And that means that then you actually end up with a fake email address at this website. And it's a random string at privaterelay.appleid.com or something similar. And if companies offer sign in with Apple, they have to take this. But basically, this means that every company gets a unique email address. So when you get a random email, like the one that Mikah got demanding over $300,000 in Bitcoin, that says, oh, you should do this, you'll know because it's gone through iCloud sign in with Apple and you've used one of their fake addresses, exactly which website that is. And you can manage that at all times in the settings. And this is the point where I'm going to forget where it is in the settings, so you're going to have to bear with me a moment. But under settings, you should be able to, I think it's under password and security, and I've tapped the wrong thing now. There we go. No, it's not. I've forgotten exactly where it is, but there is a sign in with Apple section here.
So yes, you tap on the Apple ID banner in the top of settings, and then you choose password and security as Rosemary had shown, and then you choose on you tap on apps using your Apple ID. Once you get there, you can see these are the different apps that are using my Apple ID, and I could go into one of them, like Alchemy 2, for example, and see what the email was that was used and what email it actually goes to. You also get to see the privacy policy right there. You can choose to stop using your Apple ID. You can turn off forwarding if you want to. And it shows you when you created the account with that app as well. So all of that information is right there within Sign In with Apple. And it gives you access to all that stuff. And it's important to note, too, that there was a little bit of a concern about apps using about this system, because what would happen if I ended up switching to Android or switching away from iOS? And in the same way that login with Google or login with Facebook works, or login with Twitter, you can use this system the same way. So you can actually go online to appleid.apple.com. You sign in with your Apple ID, go to the security section, go to apps and websites using Apple ID, and then manage. And so it'll look a lot like the page that's within iOS. This is available on iOS, iPadOS, It's available on the web, and it's available on the Mac to let you manage all of those different systems. So all of them are there to let you sign in with your Apple ID and protect your actual email. And it's pretty fast too, which I enjoy. It's just immediately I tap, I think it's continue with Apple that it switches to, something like that.
Yeah.
Continue with Apple ID. And you tap it, you Face ID, your Touch ID, your authentication, and you're in, which is really quite nice. All right, so that brings us to the end of the section about protecting yourself online. There are lots of different ways that you can go about making sure that your data is protected, that your privacy is protected. And I think that, there are informed decisions to make, there are behaviors to change, and I think most important is just awareness. Awareness that these different sites are tracking you, why they're tracking you, and what you can do to protect yourself from being tracked if it's not something that you want. Because as many people have noted before, some of the stuff that Google tracks you for, the return on that investment is actually quite nice. And so, knowing things about your calendar and being able to provide you information to better help you access an email or something like that. I mean, there are a number of things that Google does whenever it is tracking that information. But a site like Facebook, maybe not so much of that return on investment there, that you can't quite, put two and two together, so to speak. And so I think that awareness is where things start, being aware that these sites are tracking you. And then using these different apps and services that we've recommended will help take you even further. But I think it starts with a password manager. Get a password manager or use Apple's own built-in password manager for iOS and macOS, etc. It's one of the best things you can do to protect your accounts even before you start protecting your privacy online. All right, Rosemary Orchard, it is time to talk about the news.
Woo. Yeah, and this week Apple's been doing things again, or rather people have been doing things in Apple and Google's direction, it seems, specifically Minnesota.
Yeah, so this is important to know the backstory here. It was originally, I believe it was it North Dakota? There was another state where there was some legislation that had been introduced that wanted to kind of change the way that the App Store worked. So the App Store and the Google Play Store worked. The idea was that when an App Store or the Google Play Store forces you to use the built-in in-app payment systems and thereby give Google or Apple a cut of the profits, that is kind of an antitrust concern, and that developers should be able to use independent methods of in-app purchases. And this springs from the ongoing battle between Epic Games and Apple. And it turns out that a lobbyist working for Epic Games was the one who gave this legislation to the North Dakotan legislator to introduce there. That bill was voted down. It was not of interest to North Dakota at the time. But now in Minnesota, a similar bit of legislation is attempting to do the same. So it says the proposal would force the two tech giants to keep the products of Minnesota developers in their app stores, even if those developers sell them directly or through other channels. This is also, now I don't believe that this Minnesotan bill does it, but the North Dakotan bill also attempted to, in the bill, it suggested that apps would need to be able to be sideloaded onto devices. So what does that mean? It means that if I wanted to install an app on my iPhone and it wasn't in the App Store, that law would require the Apple to basically make that a possibility. That's normally not something that you can do without jailbreaking a device, meaning kind of getting into the root of the device and changing the way that the whole phone works, and then thereby allowing you to install apps that don't exist in the App Store because they weren't approved for the App Store for whatever reason. So there are a lot of pros for, in the pro and con list, there are a lot of pros for not letting sideloading happen, because it can lead to, as we were just talking about, privacy and security implications, so many issues if you choose to jailbreak your device, versus allowing that to happen. And then to go forth and also talk about in-app purchases. I know I feel secure using Google Pay or Apple Pay as a means of paying for things within an app. And when those apps don't have that option available, I'm less likely to want to go through with the purchase. So for me personally, because I have used these services and trust these companies for so long, I am not personally interested in having other means of doing these in-app purchases in the App Store. So I'm curious, Rosemary, as someone who exists outside of the United States, where Epic Games is trying to introduce this legislation in slightly crafty, but at the same time kind of common legislative practices. How do you feel about this? And, the EU, of course, is looking at some different antitrust issues as well, which I know Brexit is a factor in that, but still, I'm sure you have opinions about the EU.
Yes. Until very recently, I was a resident and citizen of the EU. So, it's one of those things where I actually like it. I was living in Austria for a long time. I feel like this is not going to go well, whatever happens, pretty much, because a lot of people aren't necessarily capable of thinking technology problems through. And when I say a lot of people, I very much mean politicians, because they're not necessarily experts on this stuff. And so they'll think that they understand something and then say, okay, so we need to be able to spy on people who are currently using end-to-end encryption to plan terrorist attacks, negating the fact that they also use end-to-end encryption to make sure that government documents stay secure until they're ready to be released and things like that. So I'm very much in favor of developers being able to sideload their apps onto their devices, which they can do right now through Xcode. But the way that the App Store process, at least for Apple, is set up is you, as a developer, you give Apple a half-compiled application, and they finish it off. So basically what you've done with the app and the code is you put it in a nice box ready to go. Apple takes it, opens the box, and makes sure everything that they can see is okay, kind of like TSA do with your luggage when you go through an airport. And then they wrap it up, they stick the stickers on it and everything, and they put it out on the shelf ready for people to get it. So Apple is essentially acting as the safe middleman here. Now, the other thing is you don't actually have to use Apple Pay for in-app purchases if it's a physical purchase. So if I buy things from Amazon, that's not going through Apple Pay. That's going through my credit card, which is saved on Amazon's website. It's only if I want to buy a digital good that Apple say, wait, you need to be able to do that. You need to do that through us, because if there's a problem, then we're going to get involved here, because there are different laws when it comes to distance selling regulations for digital versus physical goods. At least over here in the EU, I'm sure it's the same in the US, where, if a physical good doesn't arrive, then that's a lot easier to prove in many ways than saying I never received a digital good, because, digital things don't really exist. That's the whole problem with buying ebooks or buying electronic copies of television shows and films. You're essentially doing a long-term lease until such time as they're no longer able to offer it to you. So, it's one of those things where we're going to see what happens here. The other thing is companies can indeed sideload applications onto devices. Like, for example, universities, colleges, schools, they can use something called an MDM, which basically means that they manage all of the devices securely. So they can tell exactly where each device is. They've got permissions set on it, so people can or can't install apps. They can or can't, disconnect from the company's VPN, things like that. And they can install applications which are on, basically a private app store. So they can do this. It's just, basically what it is here is it's about the money. And that's the consumer society that we live in here. But I mean, the question is who else is going to pop up an app store that you're then absolutely going to trust? And then do we end up with, okay, so if I buy this Samsung Android phone, then I can download apps from the Samsung Android store, but I can't download them from the Google Play Store because they've disabled that. But some apps are only available on there because they've got different terms and conditions and things like that. But this app's just got loads. This app store has got loads of pirated apps, and the developers don't actually get the money. I mean, the whole app situation is complicated as it is. I don't think there's going to be a winning solution to any of this, but I think politicians have got to tread very carefully and lightly here, and they need to call on experts, both directly from Apple and Google, but also from independent experts to find out exactly what it is that they should do. And if in doubt, leave it alone and come back and look at it again in a year or so, because legislation moves slowly as it is. So we'll see. Well
put. The next story that I wanted to talk about is about actually different, so it's not just Apple, but different companies that make smart assistants, smart voice assistants like Alexa, Siri, and the Google Assistant are working to improve the ability of these voice assistants to understand atypical speech. So people with a stutter, for example, who typically would have trouble interacting with these voice assistants because of the way that they kind of quickly look for the end of a request and then try to answer that request. These technologies would be improved using actually special training with of course deep learning AI. But what I find really fascinating is the way some of the other ways that the folks are training this. So this is a report from the Wall Street Journal. And I'm going to quote here, training voice assistants to respond to people with speech disabilities could improve the experience of voice recognition tools for a growing number of potential users, seniors who are more prone to degenerative diseases, and other folks with accessibility requirements. Now, Amazon announced an Alexa integration with VoiceIt, which is an Israeli startup that lets people with speech impairments train an algorithm to recognize their own unique vocal patterns specifically. And that feature is going to go live in the coming months, so that essentially you would speak using the VoiceIt application, and through that, then you would be able to communicate with Alexa. There are also using it says a bank of 28,000 audio clips from podcasts featuring stuttering. Apple is using those to help inform Siri and improve Siri's ability to understand these folks. And then Google's Project Euphonia is testing a prototype app that lets people with atypical speech communicate with the Google Assistant and Google Home products by training software to understand their unique speech patterns. And it's also compiling an audio bank of atypical speech that volunteers can contribute to. So I love this. I love that there are different methods, of course, using different audio clips from podcasts. That's incredible. Having volunteers who want to help others with atypical speech patterns be able to communicate as well is fantastic. So there are a lot of different options out here that are working to improve this technology for something that many of us, I think, take for granted. Where we complain about Siri not giving us the right response, but the fact that we can ask that response in the first place even is in some ways a gift. So yeah, I think that this is pretty great. Yes, I think this is wonderful. I mean, there are so many different reasons for people to potential the causes behind these things, and people have so many different speech patterns. I was reading something on, I think it was the Smart Home subreddit the other day, where somebody was asking how they can set some stuff up so that their aunt, who's recently had a stroke and is coming home from hospital, will be able to contact her husband at any point. And they said, well, there's echo dots in the place, but I mean, she's slurring right now. She can't really speak very clearly. And I actually suggested a wireless doorbell as a solution to that, if anybody's curious, because that, will definitely work. It's just a single press, which can be done with her good hand.
So that should be easy. But it's surprising how many things are not accessible in some way, shape, or form. And I know there's some people out there who are doing some great things about this. Steve Aquino, who writes for, I believe, the Wall Street Journal, as well as some other places, was recently writing about Clubhouse and how its accessibility is interesting. I can't remember precisely if it was good or bad. I was just following what he was saying on Twitter, but essentially, accessibility is important in every respect. And it will be a wonderful world when everybody is able to use all of this technology. I love how far we're getting already. So I can't wait to see how much it improves.
Yes, absolutely. And then the last thing I wanted to note is that Apple has announced, that they're celebrating Women's History Month and International Women's Day with a series of pretty cool features in the App Store, the Apple TV app, on Apple Music and Apple Arcade, and some collections that they've curated for Apple News, Apple Podcasts, Apple Books, etc. So in the App Store, you will be able to find some different app developers who have created apps, of course. So the App Store is going to feature an App of the Day and Game of the Day from a woman creator during the month of March, and with Apple Arcade, showcase a collection of games starring powerful female characters. The App Store features will also include some interviews with those app developers. In Apple Music, it's highlighting women who are leaders in their field, who are breaking records and topping charts. And Apple Music listeners can enjoy a playlist called the Visionary Women playlist, as well as 4 original content short films, and Apple Music Radio and Apple Music TV will also have incredible female voices, stories, and musicianship for a full 24 hours back-to-back on March 8th. Apple Books will have several different curated collections, including Women Who Rewrote the Rules, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg's autobiography, and Apple Maps curated guides, so that you can see, it says users can discover stunning statues of remarkable women, restaurants from Michelin-starred female chefs, and rising stars from around the globe. So I guess if you do get out and about, then you can check that out. And then lots of great podcasts as well to check out. So there's lots to enjoy across the whole swath of different Apple products and Apple services. And I think it's also worth mentioning that in Apple Fitness Plus, there will be 24 workouts featuring full playlists made up of artists who are women across all of the different workout things that are there. So pretty neat. And an Apple Watch activity challenge. So if you record any workout of 20 minutes or more, then you will get the limited edition award for International Women's Day. So step into your workout shoes and get that award.
Yep, I'll be busting out my Nintendo Ring Fit and seeing if I can manage 20 minutes. And I'm sure I will. But it's a fun way to do it.
I saw that you had been thinking about the different way, or that you've been looking. I can't remember now. Were you looking for a Nintendo Wii? So you
I may have purchased a secondhand Nintendo Wii and balance board. They're on their way, just because I think it's going to be a fun way to do more fitness. And you know what? Is secondhand stuff super cheap. I mean, some of the Wii games are not really easily available, so they're actually kind of pricey. But there's so many things out there for just a couple of dollars on eBay. So I decided I'll take a chance, and I can report back in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's fun. I haven't seen a Wii in a long time.
I haven't played on one since I was like 15, so this is going to be hilarious. And yes, for people who are probably worrying, I will be using the wrist strap so that the controller does not go through my TV screen.
Lord have mercy. We don't want that. All right, let's move on to our feedback segment. The first bit of feedback comes from Jason from North Carolina. And this is an interesting question. So it says, Rosemary had talked about the app called Notability, specifically its ability to record while you scroll for a concert of audio and written notes. I used to use a pen made by LiveScribe. I used to have one of those. That was editorialization, by the way. That could do the same via the use of special paper. My third pen died from overuse or battery fatigue many years ago. I've been missing that functionality, and I'm looking at a purchase to fulfill that want. I've been looking at the Remarkable 2. And here I pop in again to say Leo has the Remarkable 2 and likes his. And it's a e-ink tablet, but find it an expensive single-purpose tablet. LiveScribe has a new inexpensive pen, but the recording is done via Bluetooth with your phone or your tablet. What are your opinions on how an iPad could be used as an alternative to the Remarkable 2 using Notability for recording? Are there OCR capabilities in Notability? Or is there another solution that either of you would recommend? Jason from North Carolina. I think Rosemary Orchard has your answer.
I do. So first of all, Notability has a section on their website about handwriting recognition and search. And they've got a little video which explains how it works. But essentially, what you can do is you can actually write something with your hand. I'm not going to do this live on the video just because trying to write at an almost vertical angle is nigh on impossible. My handwriting's terrible enough as it is. But you can select it and then you can manually convert it to text. And it uses your iPad's language. So if your iPad's set to English, then it'll use English. If your iPad's set to Spanish, it'll use Spanish, etc. And you can change that as well. But you can do a recognition alone, or you can convert to text. Now, what I love about this is it means that it will just recognize things as you go. So if you've already got an iPad, then I would definitely say go for this over any other solution. I also had a LiveScribe back in the day. The battery never lasted for very long. It always died, and you had to use that weird special paper, and stuff just didn't quite come out looking the same on my computer screen, no matter how hard I tried to make my handwriting neat and readable. I find Notability works really, really well, because as well as all of that, I also have the ability to just literally pick up my iPad, point my camera at something, and take a picture. This is the only time I use the camera function on my iPad pretty much, but it works really well. And you can also drag in images from Google and embed YouTube videos and things like that. So I would say that the OCR capabilities here and generally text recognition are fabulous. And most importantly, this is going to work for what you need. So, yes, there we go. Sorry, it started playing music very loudly there in my ears. I keep forgetting that it outputs audio, but I'm the only person who hears it, so it deafens me.
There you go. And our next one comes from Ray from Illinois. Ray writes in, I received an email from LastPass that as of March 16th, 2021, if I want to use LastPass on more than one type of device, I have to pay $2.25 per month for the privilege. I'm retired and on a fixed income, so I don't do monthly subscriptions. Totally understandable. I really like LastPass, but I can't abide being nickel and dimed to death. Is there a way to export LastPass records and then import them into iCloud Keychain? Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Ray, you were certainly not the first person that I've heard say that, and totally understandable, as you've mentioned with your particular situation where it is hard to do monthly subscriptions. So I wanted to look into this for you, and yes, the problem is to do it easily, to do it the way that makes it happen quickly, you do need a Mac. If you don't have a Mac, if you only have iOS devices, then I'm afraid it requires you essentially re-entering that information. And this is troublesome. Maybe someday we'll get an iCloud Keychain shortcut, and then Rosemary can show you how to do CSV files into iCloud Keychain. But for the time being, I'll tell you, in case you do have a Mac, how this process works. So open your browser and sign into your account on LastPass.com. Click Advanced Options in the sidebar. Choose Export, and then enter your LastPass password, and then your data will be exported. From there, on your Mac, you hold down the Command key and then hit the space bar. And then you start typing in the words Keychain Access, and you will find an app called Keychain Access. Hit enter to open that. Then go to File and choose Import Items. And then navigate on your Mac to that CSV, comma separated values file. And you will be able to import all of those logins into the into iCloud Keychain. So basically, you're exporting the data from LastPass, and then from there, it's simple to import it into your Keychain, which will sync it with iCloud via the Mac app. Again, if you don't have that Mac app, if you don't have access to a Mac to do that, then it's not as easy a process.
That said, Micah, Eric Duckman in the chat room has just pointed out there is, of course, an iCloud extension / application for Windows, which does have Keychain support in the extension on Edge. So I would recommend, if Ray only has a Windows machine and an iOS device, that he takes a look at that. And if you look on Microsoft's App Store for Windows, and the iCloud thing is there. So you can have a look, and you might actually be able to do it as well. And Doug M has said that he tried the iCloud extension on Chrome and it worked. It took a little while to pull everything in, but it worked. So I believe this might be a solution if Ray does not have a Mac, which it sounds like he doesn't. So fingers crossed for you, Ray, that you can get that set up.
Yes, because otherwise having to go through and do them all by hand is not fun.
It would be a good opportunity to update all of your passwords, though, to make sure that they're secure.
That is a really good point. And that's a really good point. And then, Rosemary, why don't you read this last one, this little bit of follow-up?
Yes. So Jeff from Florida has written in, thanks so much for answering my question on the show. I just wanted to let you know that thanks to your help, I realized what I was doing wrong. I feel quite silly now. Don't worry, Jeff. We all do. It turns out I had some of the same sites open in normal browsing as I did in private browsing. It wasn't until your explanations that I realized what I'd done. I went in private mode and assumed these carried over from normal mode, which of course wasn't the case. Anyway, thanks for the help. By the way, I love the tip on closing multiple tabs. So I'm really glad that we were able to help you out there, Jeff, and that we've solved the mystery of things being open in multiple places. So don't worry about feeling silly. I trust you. Trust me, everybody feels silly from time to time. And the number of times where I've tried to find my glasses and it turns out they were on my head the entire time just proves that I'm not that smart. There's a reason why I usually wear contact lenses.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification, Jeff, and that we got to the bottom of that. And I'm glad that private browsing is doing what you want it to do, because that would have been the most concerning thing, is if it was not working as we had seen it work and how it's intended to work. So all good there. All right. I think that means it's time for the app caps. I'm trying to take my time now because this song's a little long. So before I put the hat on, I listen to some music and dance around. I wear this hat a lot for the app cap segment, I have to admit, because I love it so much.
I have a new hat for today. The party box that I bought keeps on giving, so.
And we're coming to the end of the jingle. Bottom. All righty, folks, it is time for our app caps. These are our app picks of the week, the apps that we've used for a long time that we love or maybe new to us, and we want to share them with you. And during the app cap segment, we wear caps on our heads to honor those app picks of the week. And I am yet again in this delightful hat that it makes me feel cozy and comfy, and I could fall asleep wearing this hat. I don't know if it was meant to be a sleep hat, but it just feels like a sleep hat. And what are you rocking over there? That's a nice hat you've got.
I'm rocking a flat cap. These are popular with older men in the UK. There was one in the party box of hats that I bought when I joined the show. Yes, I bought a party box of hats because you need lots of hats for app caps. And it reminds me of what my grandfather used to wear. There's a picture of me dressing up when I was about 4 or so in his waistcoat and his shoes and his cap. And I did not look much like him, but everybody thought it was adorable. So there's lots of pictures of me plastered around wearing that particular outfit.
Aw. So tell us, Rosemary, what is your app pick of the week?
My app pick of the week is A Mission to Mars in augmented reality.
What?
So there's this free app on the App Store, which is called A Mission to Mars. And it's got loads of things in it. And of course, as the name implies, a lot of this is using augmented reality. Now, this would be very difficult to demo on the show, so I'm actually going to pick something else. But they've got augmented reality, they've got videos, they've got quizzes, things like that. And they've also got experiences where you can do things like meet the rovers, where you can meet each of the individual rovers that have landed on Mars and have done things. Yes. Okay. So now my iPad is indeed in landscape mode again. Excellent. It's one of those things. The menu works best in portrait mode. So you can pick one, and I'll pick the Perseverance and Curiosity. And it goes through and it shows you little things about this. But you have you can actually pan around yourself and see things, and it will highlight things. And if you tap on it, then you can specify, oh, okay, I am really curious about the battery on this. And then it'll take you and it'll actually highlight where this is in a wireframe model on where this part is on the Curiosity. Of course, if you are using the AR version, then you can drive one of these around your house, or you can have Mars in your living room, and things like that, which is just amazing. And I love this so much because you can just learn so many things about the space program that we have in this world and how it works, but also, just how these robotics have been designed and how they function. We're the race of people, humans, that put a robot on Mars and taught it how to sing happy birthday to itself. So there's so many cool things that we can learn from this. And I'm just having so much fun playing with the robots, I have to say, because that's the kind of geek I am. It's so cute. But it's a great app. It's really well designed. There's more information available from the Smithsonian. And there's just, you can put a rover in your garage. You can land stuff on snow or on Mars. And I just love it. It's amazing. And I actually want a real Mars rover now, but apparently they're pretty expensive. So let's see.
The fact that someone hasn't made a sort of small sized rover that you can buy and it's got a remote control and does all the things that the big rover can do. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if someone has made that, but that they haven't mass marketed that. There's got to be some.
Like there were BB-8s and R2-D2s in the Apple Store for ages. And unfortunately, they're discontinued now. But I would love a Mars rover version. And I bet that would make a great present for so many people. So whoever was behind that BB-8 project and the R2-D2 project, get on it, please.
Get on it. Let's see it. I am going to shock and surprise everyone who's been a longtime listener of iOS Today and who's ever followed my work, because I'm going to talk about a game, which I feel weird saying, but I'm going to talk about a game today. There's a new game in the Apple Arcade library called Survival Z, and this is a classic survival game where you try to make your way through a map. Essentially, you have a certain amount of health and you have to try to make it all the way through the map to the end. And then along the way, you collect different things. So in this game, you're collecting survivors, you're collecting new skills as you try to get to the end of the map. So I just finished a round, and now I'm about to come on to a question mark. And this is the first time I've ever hit a question mark. So we're doing this together. Let me move my little bubble out of the way there. It says, our scouts have not yet mapped this area. It could be a standard node or something that requires tactical decisions. So with this game, you can play it with your fingers or you can connect it. It works with controllers. And so I've only played it on my iPhone, so I've done it with my fingers leading up to this. But on the iPad, I would recommend, if you've got a controller, to use that. So we'll tap start level and we'll see what happens. So here we go. This is the first time, again, that I've ever seen this. It says, supplies are dwindling and the groans of your stomach sounds like a horde of ghouls. Oh, wait, you're definitely hungry, but the groaning is most certainly coming from that crowd of zombies ahead, and they're approaching a cache of supplies. That means there's some gold inside the cache. Defend the supply cache if you defend it, you get 10 gold. If you don't, then you get 26 HP. I'm taking the health. I need that health, and now we can move on. Oh, I forgot there was a medical tent right afterwards, so maybe I wouldn't have needed to get the health. I could have got the gold. But we'll come to this medical tent really quick and get healed up. And so we'll choose restore some health there. Boom, I'm fully restored. And now the medic says, knock 'em dead. And here we go. I'm going to go to... So I'm looking along here, and it looks like the only way to save this survivor is if I take the more difficult of the 2 levels. So I'll choose Epic Horde, a more intense encounter with the zombies. This may be the more difficult path, but you'll be rewarded with more gold and rare abilities. So here is how the game works kind of in these individual matches. We'll let this load. And once we get in, you start to, you get the option to kind of set up your map with special supplies. So I start out with 2 of these little explodey bins, and I'm again using my fingers because I don't have a controller set up. And you can see as I move around the different places that the zombies are able to enter. So right now there aren't any except for this one area. So what I'm going to do is put an explodey bin in front of that area, and essentially many of the zombies will go first to attack that, and then it will explode and it will get rid of some of them. And I'll put another explodey bin here. And now I need to start the round, start the horde of zombies coming in. So I'll tap start at the top, and the goal is to dispatch the zombies, to get rid of the zombies before they get rid of me, essentially. So here they come. And I'll kind of move back to get out of the way there. And you go, there are different types of zombies that do different things. Oh, including this one over here, which is a very troublesome zombie because it summons other zombies onto the stage. And so it is quite the annoyance. This one shoots out little fire bombs in a plus pattern, and so as long as you're not in the way of the plus pattern, you're okay. What I've gotten in that horde is a turret. So I'll set up the turret near the front, and you'll see that turret helps me defeat these zombies, but the zombies will try to attack the turret to stop it from hurting them. So I'll get over here. So I'm kind of out of, oh no, that one hit me.
Oh, behind you. No.
Oh, and that's the other problem.
I am so glad I ordered that controller for my iPhone so that I can play arcade games more easily.
Yes. Oh no, I'm not doing well health-wise. This is bad. This is very bad.
Definitely. But you'll survive, maybe, hopefully.
Oh, I survived. Yes. So I survived the second wave. I said you would survive. The thing. You did, and I appreciate that. This is the thing, though, is that there's still one more wave of zombies that I have to get through. And if I
with 15 health points.
With 15 health points, exactly.
It's going to be dicey.
So these little, so the thing that I put up there, basically that draws the zombies in to attack it first before it ever hurts me. And then these little things are kind of goo jars. And so they will attack that and then they get slowed down. So it's these little things that keep affecting me the most. Oh, there's a summoner. Oh, and now I've died.
Oh,
so
no.
now you see what happens when you end up getting got by the zombies. Your friend wakes you up and says, oh, you're okay. And essentially you have to start the map all over, but you do get to bring home the supplies that you had collected thus far, which is nice. So now I have a chance to upgrade stuff if I want to. And then afterward, I go back in and I start the map over and try to make it through all the way to the end. So it's not easy, but I have found it engaging. And it is not often that I find a game engaging. I find games to be incredibly boring and unrewarding. But this one so far has kept me engaged, which is just a very rare thing for me. So I couldn't not give it a try, or you know, I was very surprised, and I couldn't not talk about it on iOS today, given that it was a game that actually held my interest for longer than a couple of seconds. So yeah, that is my app cap, and I do believe that brings us to the end of another episode of iOS Today. Folks, if you have questions that you want to send our way, you send those to iostoday@twit.tv. You can send it in text format, which is how we get most of them. But if you'd like to, you can also send a little bit of audio that we'll play on the show to have you ask your question, or video if you've got that to ask your question. The show records live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So if you want to tune in live, you just go to twit.tv/live and you can hang out with us in the chat. Rosemary is very active in the chat. So if you have things that you want to say during the show, then you can hang out there. Twit.tv/ is it irc.twit.tv? Yeah, irc.twit.tv for the live IRC chat, or get a chat app, which many of us use. I like Textual myself. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to the show. And you do that by going to twit.tv/iOS. There you will find links to subscribe to the show in various formats, audio and video, across so many different platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places that you are, we try to be. And subscribing to the show is not only the easiest way to make sure you're enjoying the show, but also it helps us out by doing so. And another shout out to those of you who have left ratings and reviews in the Apple Podcast library. That has meant so much to us and is incredibly helpful. So if you haven't joined the party, there are quite a few in there. Feel free to join the fun and leave a review yourself, and maybe tell us your favorite app if you'd like. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you and your great work online, where do they go to do that?
The best place is over at rosemaryorchard.com, where you can find links to me and all the things I do on the internet. Or if you want to send me a tweet, then I'm at Rosemary Orchard on Twitter. Micah, where can people find you?
Well, I am at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks. You can also head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which is a real website where I've got links to all the different places I exist online. Thanks so much for tuning in to yet another episode of iOS Today. Goodbye.
Hey, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, host of Hands of Photography here on TWiT TV. I know some of you have gotten yourself a brand new camera, or you just had a camera sitting around and can't quite figure out how to get the most out of it. Well, I have a solution. My show, Hands on Photography. So subscribe right now to learn how to get the most out of that camera. I'm going to show you how to make those images pop. I don't care if it's a Canon camera. I don't care if it's a Sony, Nikon, iPhone, Android, even an inexpensive Android device. I got you covered. So head on over to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.